for people who may play the event, what do you think about the cameras? Because I think now we are like 1 week in. Because here's my take on the cameras. I wish they were kind of better, because we are obviously doing the no cam detect challenge, right? And that is exciting, but the thing is, you never ever have to remotely play like that. Ever. Like, ever. Most of the times, you just have to, if you are seen, you just break LOS. Like, as long as you play somewhat careful. You don't even have to play mega careful, but you play somewhat careful and you are aware where the cameras spawn. They are really lackluster in my opinion. Cool concept, I wish it was better. Like, don't get me wrong, this is not a concept where I'm like, oh my god, I hate it to death. I really wish this was a lot better, but regarding the damage stuff, you see a camera spots you. Most of the times, unless you're hardcore rushing, you just break line of sight for a second because you don't get insta damaged. And the detect part of the camera also doesn't seem to work a lot. It might be because people like enemies are only alerted by the cameras if they're only nearby. But even then, I played around with this a little bit, and it sometimes also doesn't seem to straight up work. The cameras are like, man, if you don't care about being detected. Like, the biggest thing about the cameras right now, which is like the biggest problem, like the biggest difficulty, is if you want to do flawless runs. If you wanna do flawless runs, because they count for the report, right? If you care about flawless runs or no damage runs, then yeah, they're actually really tricky to deal with. But the thing is, not many people care about that to begin with, right? A lot of people don't give zero shits about grading, and like, if you get hit by a camera once, it does like a quarter, not a quarter, but half of a bracket. So you just, even if you get damage, you can still break line of sight and then let it passively regen, right? So, yeah. Like, yeah, the cameras have the side effect that if you're getting chased in an unknown territory, you might get fucked, but for the most part, it's like, it just feels like whatever. That if a pouncer grabs you and the cam sees you, it's over. That is very true. If the pouncer, like, it jumps you and you're right next to a camera. To be fair, though, that's not the cameras, that's the pouncer. Most of the time, doing most of the work, but yeah. Enemies don't even spawn, that's the thing. Don't like the schematics are fucking awful, I agree. Half a bracket. Yeah, basically, if you're getting shocked by a camera, it has a delay, right? It has a delay until it starts attacking you. And it basically takes 8 shocks until you die. Basically. Which, to be fair, the main thing shouldn't be the damage. The main thing should be the alert part. And the alert part, again, doesn't really work. What I would love to see, here's my idea, okay, chat? Spitballing random idea, okay? We do a camera point system. I know, it's getting really complicated. We're doing math now again. And after a certain amount of camera point, stuff happens. You get 1 camera point per second you are exposed to a camera. So let's say 3 or 5 camera points in total. So nothing would still, if a camera sees you, nothing would necessarily happen right immediately. But if you're constantly being seen by cameras, then stuff starts hitting the fan. First, enemies become, capture enemy awareness. Like, they become alerted, search around for a lot, become very sound sensitive, etc, etc. Similar to the capture enemies of, like, downtown. Again, after, being exposed to cameras for, let's say, 3 total seconds or 5 total seconds or whatever the value is. You can play around with that value, whatever. You know, you can play around with that value. They become alerted for like a few minutes. You can even make it thematically that once you're alerted, it plays like a siren across the trial, and it even has like an announcement voice being like, attention, experimental population, intruders in the area, search, commencing search or whatever. You can even make that thematically and have like a siren playing in the background, and then they're alerted like for a few minutes or something like that. Like, it's essentially emulating stealth games. You know how in some stealth games like Dishonored or Six Shards of Darkness comes into mind. There are a bunch of stealth games like that where there is an alert system. There's a difference between an enemy spotting you and an alarm being triggered. Because when an alarm is being triggered, enemies are permanently searching you in these types of games. And the surveillance camera, Payday 2 too, yeah? Payday 2 is another good example, yeah? And once an alarm is actually being broadcasted, enemies are very, very aware. Either make it then so they become capture enemies for a few minutes, or even permanent. I think permanent would be too strong and too annoying, but at least make them capture, detect enemies, like in downtown capture segments, for a few minutes after being exposed from the cameras for too long. And you can then also make it so if you keep triggering cameras, it also spawns extra enemies. But that would be like very, very, if you're like very careless, like 10 camera points, so 10 seconds or something like that. The main reason why I feel this would also be justified, by the way, is because you can permanently disable cameras. That's like the main thing. If cameras were only temporarily disabled, like the ones from the proximity gates or something like that, then this would be a whole different discussion. But since you can use throwable, stun rig, jammer, and so on and so forth to disable cameras permanently, I think having an alarm system in the game like that would be justified, in my opinion. Would it be fun and fair? Blah 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 blah. We would have to see. But at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a stealth variator. I know Trials community hates stealth, so people would hate that, but this is also supposed to be on the same wavelength as a boss variator, similar to Primetime, similar to Toxic Shock, similar to Cold Snap, similar to Countdown, whatever. And it just needs a little bit of oomph, in my opinion. So yeah, these are like my thoughts on it.